Ladies and gentlemen, if everybody wants to take a seat, we'll get going here in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you for. All right.
All good? Okay, let's roll. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Village Board, 6 p.m., February 28th, 2022. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. Will the clerk call the roll?
Washburn,
Here.
Hewitt,
Here.
Bhatia,
Here.
Eastman,
Here.
Clausen. Here. Anastasio,
Here.
DeGroot.
He's here. So the first item of business, we've got about 8 quick public hearing items that we have to take up, and then we'll get through those specific items of business, and then from there we'll move on to public comment on anything else. So I'm going to read the rules for these public hearings at this time, and they will apply to all 8 of them. If you wish to speak on any of these items, please fill out a public hearing form, and you can find that on the table near the entrance. Once recognized, speakers will come to the podium and identify themselves with their name and address. Please speak clearly into the microphone. I will first call people in favor of the application and then call those opposed. Speakers must direct all discussions towards the board. I will not allow interchange between members of the audience and the petitioner. We request that you do not interfere with nor interject comments while another person has the floor. Please keep all comments on the particular item that's before the board and no longer than 5 minutes. And finally, if you would please turn off or mute your electronic devices so we don't have that distraction. So I'll now open up the public hearing for item A, ordinance 1-2022, pertaining to a zoning map amendment for the Giddings Road. Sam?
Mr. President, members of the board, the applicant applied to amend the zoning map for property from AG1 Limited Agriculture to RL1 Low Density Residential. This application coordinates with Certified Survey Map Application CSM 0122 and Condominium Plat Application CP 0122, which are also on the agenda tonight. The applicant wishes to construct 16 two-unit houses on the southern half of the property for 32 total units and leave the northern half of the property open for future development.
I have nobody signed up to speak regarding this from the public. Anybody in the public here wishing to speak on this in favor or against? Not hearing that, we'll close public hearing on item A. So I'll now open up the public hearing for item B, which is ordinance 02-2022, pertaining to a zoning map amendment for the 10,017 Spring Street. Sam.
The applicant applied to amend the zoning map for the property from RL1 Low Density Residential to RE Estate Residential. The applicant wishes to have 2 goats on the property as allowed under Division 90-340 horses and farm animals.
So to the public, I have nobody signed up for that either. This is about goats, ladies and gentlemen. Anybody for or against? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close item B. And we'll now move on to item C. I will now open up the public hearing for item C, ordinance 6-2022, pertaining certain zoning performance standards. Sam.
The proposed amendment updates outdated references, including chapters NR 400 to 499 regarding air pollution, Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34 Fire Prevention and Protection, Article 90-425 Outdoor Lighting, Chapter NR 429 regarding odors, Chapter DHS 157 regarding radioactivity and electrical disturbances. The amendment also clarifies inconsistencies in noise limit administration.
To the public, nobody has signed up to speak either in favor or against item C. Anybody wishing to speak in favor or against? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close the public hearing on item C. And so I'll now open the public hearing for item D, which is ordinance 07-2022 pertaining to conservancy districts. Sam?
The proposed amendment adopts two conservancy zoning districts. The C1 Lowland Resource Conservancy District is primarily intended to prevent destruction of valuable natural resources, to protect water courses and marshes, including the shorelands of navigable waters, and areas that are not naturally drained or that are subject to periodic flooding, where development would result in hazards to health or safety, or would deplete or destroy natural resources, or otherwise be incompatible with the general welfare. The C2 Upland Resource Conservancy District is primarily intended to preserve, protect, enhance, and restore all significant woodland areas of significant topography and related scenic resources. Regulation of these areas serves to control erosion and sedimentation and will promote and maintain the natural beauty of the village.
I have nobody scheduled or written to speak for this or against this. Anybody from the public wishing to speak for or against ordinance 07-2022? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close public hearing on item D, and we'll move to item E, which is, I'll open the public hearing for ordinance 8-2022, and it pertains to land division. Sam?
The proposed amendment updates the ordinances that regulate and control all land divisions within the corporate limits of the Village of Mount Pleasant and within the extraterritorial land division, plats, and certified survey maps, approval jurisdiction of the village in order to promote and protect the public health, safety, prosperity, aesthetics, and general welfare of the community. Specifically, the ordinance updates the procedures to comply with current state law, updates design standards to match existing engineering and zoning ordinances, updates construction standards to match existing engineering practice, correctly references fees, and provides updated definitions.
I have nobody signed up, scheduled to speak on this item, but from the public, anybody for, anybody against, wishing to speak? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close item E, and we'll move on to item F, which is, I'll open the public hearing for ordinance 09-2022 pertaining to detached and two-unit houses. Back to Sam.
The proposed amendment increases the maximum lot frontage, width, and lot area for two-unit houses or duplexes in the RL2, RM, or RH zoning districts by up to 50%.
I have nobody from the public signed up wishing to speak for or against this, but I'll ask those assembled. Anybody here wishing to speak for or against ordinance 9-2022? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close item F, and we will move on to opening up the public hearing for item G, which is ordinance 10-2022 pertaining to a parking layout and design. Back to Sam.
The proposed amendment outlines a procedure for site plans to allow semi-truck, tractor-trailer, and other heavy vehicle parking on site plans that currently do not conform to the specifications listed in the ordinance. It also sets the approval conditions for such applications.
I have nobody signed up to speak for or against this, but to those assembled from the public, anybody wishing to speak for or against item G? If so, sir, would you please come up to the microphone? Have you filled out your paperwork?
No, I didn't. I wasn't just talking. I just got a question because I don't understand it.
If you would, go to the podium and identify yourself.
There was no paperwork up there earlier.
Just the public comment, not the, go ahead.
My name is Gerald Warner. I live at 8934 Giddings Road. Been there for 40-some years. long before any of the subdivisions were in there. My biggest question on that is I'm not sure what semi-tractor parking, what does that have to do with subdivision? Why would it be in anything to do with Giddings Road or Spring Street?
That's,
Is
this
it
is
just
a totally
something
different,
thrown in?
totally different item. Yeah, we, Giddings Road.
So it doesn't have anything to do with our, okay,
Right, Sam?
that was it?
That's correct, yep. This is related to truck parking lots, essentially completely different ordinance than the ones pertaining to Giddings Road.
Anybody else? Not hearing from anybody, we'll close item G and move on to item H, which is a public hearing for ordinance 11-2022 pertaining to certain zoning administration and procedures. Back to Sam.
This is in two separate sections. One is in 90-540.10 purpose. The proposed amendment adopts a new purpose goal to review the potential developments at the Plan Commission in regards to fiscal impact and future financial obligations and/or maintenance. Secondly, under authorized administrative adjustments, it allows the community development director to authorize adjustments to side and rear setbacks, lot width, and lot area maximum requirements, in addition to minimums by up to 15%. It also adds the condition that the requested administrative adjustments cannot bring the overall average building or lot of a development proposal out of compliance with that zoning district.
I have nobody from the public wishing to speak to this either, but again, to those assembled, anybody for this, anybody against it? And not hearing from anybody, we'll close the public hearing on item H. And what, again, what most of these public hearings were about were verbiage cleanups in our existing ordinances, but since we're changing some verbiage, we have to be able to hold that out to the public for their comment and review, and that's part of our statutory obligation when we make amendments to our ordinances. So with that being done, we're closed on all items, including H, and then we can move on to public comment and input, which is about everything else other than what we just heard at the public hearing. So members of the public are welcome to provide comments on any matter. Please listen for the president to recognize you. State your name and address for the public record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. I don't believe I have any paperwork for anybody signed up for public comment either. Anybody wishing to speak publicly on any matter that suits your fancy? Not hearing from anybody. We'll close public comment. So we'll jump down to our consent agenda. Trustee Hewitt.
Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No,
No?
no. Could we pull number 5?
Sure. With number 5 removed for a separate conversation, are we okay then, trustee?
Yes.
Yeah, just make sure the mover and the second.
Okay, can we back this up to the mover and the seconder that the amended motion is consent agenda accepting item number 5. Is that good to the maker and the seconder?
Yes.
Okay.
John, good with you?
The question has come up on number 5.
Yeah, Trustee Clausen asked to remove number 5 out of the consent agenda.
Okay, I will amend my motion to, remove number 5.
Okay. So, with number 5 removed, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that motion carries. So if we could go to item number 5, which is approval of a professional services agreement between the Village of Mount Pleasant and Eplex LLC for building plan review services.
I'm looking for my copy. Okay. All right, the information from South Shore Fire, there were suggestions to changes to that document that appear not to have been made. So I'm questioning whether we want to incorporate the changes that were suggested by South Shore Fire.
This was, Mr. President, we discussed this with Sam, and you, at the meeting you weren't here at, Anna Marie. And so
Okay.
I think that what we felt overall is that the fire department's concerns were taken care of in the contract, because many of their concerns, as the way this was originally written, and probably, and still is in some cases, gave the impression that there was things being taken away from the fire department, which are not.
Okay?
So, have you talked, I mean, I guess, in my mind, I thought we had discussed this at committee of the whole as well as,
Yes, these are meetings that you missed, and
Okay.
the professional service agreement doesn't impact the fire department in this.
Mr. President, I have the same comment here. It was gonna be removed. This is a contract that we're signing here, and it was gonna be removed from that. Just the part that says fire alarm and sprinkler trades, and sprinkler and fire alarms. It's listed in there. We were gonna have it taken out before the contract was signed. That's what we agreed upon last time.
Yeah, so someone could just make a motion and note that.
Yeah. Well, let me see. That should have.
Sam, is that your understanding?
So I guess I'm confused because I did not receive those changes, and I am the one, the staff member managing this contract, so I would appreciate to see the requested changes. That said, if you read everything, if you're concerned about the exhibits in the contract, those are just exhibits, but I think the pertinent line is in scope of services, that plan review exceeding the size thresholds for a certified municipality for building and HVAC reviews, as well as any and all other types of reviews that rely on the licensure of the consultant, fire alarm, fire sprinkler, plumbing, et cetera. So essentially, we're asking them to provide plan review services for building and HVAC, and if we so ask them to use their licensure to review fire system plans, then the fees in the exhibit are charged. We do not have any intent to do so. However, they are saying in the contract, if you asked us to review that, these would be our fees. So I understand why it reads confusing, but I think the important part is for building and HVAC reviews.
I think the fire department was just concerned that it's staying in the contract, and they already have a contract with the service.
And
that
we
does
are
their
not
work.
signing any other contract for those services. This is the consultant saying, if you ask us our opinion on a fire alarm or a fire sprinkler, here's what we'll charge you if you do so. So this is not us saying we plan to do that. They're acknowledging that we're not, but they're covering their bases in the contract saying, we are legally certified to do this. We give you an opinion, you're gonna see a bill for this. But that's not our intent, as we've told the fire department and you all at committee of the whole. This is just for building and HVAC reviews.
Okay, and that's all from Exhibit A then, right?
Yeah, so Exhibit A is just the example fees that they would charge if we asked them. But the important part is in the text under scope of services, where it says building and HVAC reviews.
Okay, and as you said, I was not there for the discussion. Okay,
I mean, I can see why the fire department would be concerned. Because in the scope of services, it refers to Exhibit A.
Right.
And Exhibit A, item 1, states it in there clearly. I mean, if it makes the fire department happy, Sam, can you make that, can you strike those 3 things or 2 things from Exhibit A?
I mean, I'd have to talk to the consultant to see if they're legally comfortable with it. I think their worry is that if they, in the process of plan review, somehow get roped into a conversation on fire alarm, fire sprinklers, plumbing, et cetera, that they are outside their scope of services and want to charge it back. So while I anecdotally probably don't think they would have an issue with it at this time, I can't give you a for certain. So you can certainly approve it with those changes and I can take it to them. But
I mean, we don't want them to get an application that's for a building, and it has a fire suppression system, and they do their review, and it comes up with a sentence that says, you know, fire suppression to be reviewed by others. That would be what I would think would come out of their review.
exactly, yes.
And then their client, or our client, or the party doing with the permit application in, calls and starts questioning them. They could have a very casual conversation. In other words, how are they gonna draw the line and say, that's not part of our contract, we can't talk about that? And I think that's the fine line that I don't think we can ever get the fire department and the contract happy with, because in my mind, we would want the consultant to be able to have some kind of dialogue. Yes, you need a fire suppression review. Here's typically who does those. In the village of Mount Pleasant, it runs through the fire department. I mean, there has to be some communication that way. But if you're satisfied, Sam, as the keeper of the flame, that you feel the scope of services is tight enough and will be limited to that, you know, I don't know how the committee feels or the trustees feel. I think typically we want to narrow down contracts to the point where, you know, contracts always have questions in them. So I'm not sure that that really helps us by narrowing it down to the point of distraction or that finally.
Well, I think we know what our intent is in this, and it was
That's
for
what I mean.
HVAC and the fire and fire suppression was never supposed to be a part of this. And I think that still is the intent of this. But if we could approve that and just get some kind of final clarification on how that should be, whether it stays in or whether it's stricken. We certainly have had that conversation with the fire department in excess at this point.
We have, and I think we've made it clear what we intend for this contract to be for.
Right.
If I may add, yes, I think everyone is right that we had the conversation. I think the confusion is because the item says approval of a professional services agreement, but the handout that we have, it doesn't have the actual agreement, it's got the exhibits. So I would be okay if the motion is to approve the agreement with specifically only for the HVAC and any other stuff, and excluding, the motion should have that it does not include the fire sprinkler and the fire suppression, and I think then, to me, it will be clear what this board is approving.
I'm with you that that's what the fire department is looking for.
Yeah.
And I think my point is the contract already says that. So, I mean, I can cut out any mention, if that is the board's will, of fire alarm, fire sprinkler, you know, et cetera. You know, this is just a standard fee table. If you look at it as building plans, HVAC fans, fire alarm system plans, like they didn't, in that exhibit, they did not create that table specifically for us. Those are just the services that they provide. So
Right.
I think the contract is already tight enough as it is, but if the board wants to do that, that's fine. I can modify the contract. We'd just like to be able to move forward with the process.
I'd like to just get it approved tonight, and it doesn't necessarily need a strikeout, but you just might want to footnote it, you know, what the fire department's intention is, you know, in this, and I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay? So in that matter, we need a motion to approve it then, because we just took up the discussion. So, if somebody would like to make a motion to approve that item?
I make a motion to approve the professional services agreement, let's see, get the right wording, between the Village of Mount Pleasant and Eplex LLC for building plan review services.
Do you want to add that, accept?
With the understanding that the fire alarm and fire suppression system reviews will continue to be the principal responsibility of South Shore,
That sounds great. Anybody
of the South Shore
seconding
Fire
that?
Department.
I'll second that.
So we have motion and a second. Any further discussion on that item? Not hearing any regarding that particular item. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Is the clerk okay with that motion and vote and all that? Good.
Mr. President, if I could make one comment on one of the items in the consent agenda, it's just a comment. There were two things in that consent, if that's okay, it'll take 1 minute. Within that consent agenda that we just approved, we approved our new zoning code ordinance 70, or our zoning code chapter 74. And within that consent agenda, we also approved the Spring Trail condominium plat. One of the things I noticed in reviewing the packet for Sam's consideration as well as the developer was that under our new zoning code, we have a lot of flexibility for road layouts and road widths and asphalt widths. I noticed that in this development, Spring Trail, Lane is a private cul-de-sac that is a 66-foot wide public roadway. I shouldn't say private cul-de-sac. It is a 66-foot public roadway that will have less than 20 units on it, and it is being built to the regular residential street allocation of 32 feet of asphalt. Within Sam's analysis of the project, he noted that he'd like to see their tax increment return about a 9% return over time to pay back for the construction of the road. My suggestion to the developer is to meet with the village staff as well as our engineering department to look at the flexibility that Chapter 74 now gives them, and maybe look at something like a 24-foot roadway of asphalt. We create more green space. The driveways within the condominium project are quite long and will in fact park 4 cars instead of 2, so you don't need to worry about congestion on the street. It adds green space, it's less asphalt, and I'll bet you, as you look at that analysis over time of Sam's financial analysis, because we've shrunk the asphalt for repaving in the future, we probably would bring the project more in line with the goals that Sam's trying to reach for financial independence of the site over time. So that's just my suggestion to the developer and Sam. Use Chapter 74, it's a new tool, it's what it's there for. Save yourself money, save the village money in the long term. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to finance, legal, and licensing. We've got discussion, possible action regarding new Class A only, Class A beer only license for Knights Inn, 1149 Oaks Road. Agent Samar Shah.
Mr. President, I make a motion to deny a new Class A beer-only license for Knights Inn.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second to deny. Any thoughts from the trustees?
Yes, I'd like to have a comment that it's not easy for this board to make the decision to deny it. In the past, we have had the applicants or the situation where the license has been denied for various reasons, mostly public nuisance and complaints and everything, but in every case, the applicant is the responsibility of them to talk to the police, to talk to the village officials, and to alleviate the concern. And right now, my concern is this applicant, even at the last meeting, and I don't see him here, so I guess, I don't see any effort from, the applicant to try to put their case and what their plans are to alleviate our concern. So because of that, that's why I think I would support the motion to deny it.
Any quick thoughts from Chief Sons?
Yes, at the last COW meeting, we briefly discussed this as well, and I believe in the packets, some call sheets were included. You're looking at hundreds of calls each to each of these establishments. From a law enforcement perspective, the amount of time, the amount of calls that tie up our officers at these two places, and add the ease and availability of beer being sold from inside, it's just not a good mix. So we wouldn't be for that either.
Well, I would echo Chief Sohn's thoughts. We have somewhat of a troubled hotel, a hotel that has a history of police calls, and so let's raise the stakes and throw a little alcohol into the mix of this, and see where that spills out and ends up. So I would, based on the advice from Chief Sohns and from our own village attorney, I certainly would support denying that license as well.
Agreed.
Did you have something you wanted to add, Stephanie?
Yeah, so just for your information, my deputy got word as the COW meeting ended that the applicant denied his opportunity to make a case for approval. He understands that less trouble is better. So that was his statement.
Okay. Did you want to add?
Just, it's a little confusing because we normally vote to approve, but remember here, a yes vote is to deny.
Yes, the motion was to deny, so we would have to vote in the affirmative to uphold that motion, therefore denying the license. So in the matter of the Class A license, motion to deny, roll call.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Bhatia,
Aye.
Eastman,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, that motion carries. So from the same provider, discussion possible action regarding a new Class A beer-only license for America's Best Value Inn, 5419 Durand Avenue, agent Summer Shah.
Mr. President, I make a motion to deny a new Class A beer-only license for America's Best.
Second.
So there's motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? And before discussion, back to Chief Sohns.
This was the other hotel that we also discussed at the last COW. Similar issues we have there as the Knights Inn. Again, we would not feel comfortable adding alcohol to the mix there.
Now, to be sure, these are new ownership situations of a somewhat troubled hotel. I guess what I'd like to see first is a little history of, cleaning up the past messes, and perhaps at some time in the future when he's got a track record of of a good neighbor, then at that point in time maybe a license request could be made. Until then, I'd say no.
I would agree. I saw in the reports, in the call reports, it would appear that America's Best, I'm not sure when the new owner took over, but it seems like in the last 2 months of 2021, their calls volumes went down a tad, but they were still for some very serious things. So I'm sure that was a You know, I would, again, if they can continue that effort of cleaning it up, I think, yeah, we would be more than happy to revisit it.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so as the last motion was made, this one is to deny, and so to deny, you would have to vote in the affirmative. Roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Boccia,
Aye.
Eastman,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, motion carries. So we'll jump down to item 3, which is discussion possible action pertaining to an amendment with the contract with Kapoor and Associates.
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve an amendment to the contract with Kapoor and Associates, Inc. as presented. Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Again, this is more so a cleanup of the existing agreement than anything. So with that matter, roll call, please.
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Boccia,
Aye.
Eastman,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, motion carries. Public Works, we've got an award of contract for the Kraut Road Storm Sewer Project.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to award the contract for the Kraut Road Storm Sewer Project to the low bidder, Always Contractors LLC, in the amount of $229,890.
Second.
So I hear a motion and a second. Any thoughts from staff on this?
No, as you can see in the packet, the lowest bid came in underneath the engineer's estimate, so we got a very good price on this project.
We did.
Excellent.
Let's get them going.
So, so in the matter of the Kraut Road Storm Sewer Project, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. We've got a couple of Plan Commission issues. Ordinance 07-2021, adding Article 90-155, which is Conservancy Districts to the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin. Trustee Hewitt.
Make a motion to approve 07-2022, adding Article 90-155, Conservancy Districts to the Code of Ordinances to the Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Sam, you have any thoughts on that?
Just two notes. We just talked about this in a public hearing. This is largely protecting wet areas, wetlands, and hydric soils and things like that, as well as woodlands. Both of those areas are identified on our Parks and Open Space Plan. So this is implementing some of the recommendations from that adopted plan, which is also part of our comprehensive plan. Second note, this will require a zoning map change to actually implement this ordinance, so you can look forward to us being back with the actual zoning map implementation in the coming months as we get into it with our GIS helpers. So that's it.
Thoughts from trustees?
No, I think it's a good one.
I agree. So in the matter of ordinance 07-2022, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Boccia,
Aye.
Eastman,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, motion carries. So we've got another ordinance, which is ordinance 8-2022, which amends the Code of Ordinances, Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Chapter 74, Land Division.
Make a motion to adopt 08-2022, amending the Code of Ordinances to the Village of Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, Chapter number 74, Land Division.
Second.
I hear a motion and a second. Mr. Schultz.
I think this is something that we want to highlight in terms of updating our land division ordinances, in that it will really clean up the administration procedures. So applicants should see a lot more clear-cut process in the Code of Ordinances and through our administration, which I think will be nice, because these are often some of the longest processes that go through staff, Plan Commission, Village Board. This will also update to a lot more modern standards, which is nice. We are no longer working with early town rules and have kind of updated them to more modern village rules. We'd like to emphasize that, like the zoning code, as we've probably overproved tonight, we will likely be back with changes and updates and cleanups as this goes through, but this is a big section of the code, so we want to make sure it's current. And then finally, I wanted to highlight the second part of this ordinance, which takes post-construction stormwater management and construction site erosion and sediment control and puts those under the stormwater management chapter. So part of this is a little bit of code reorganization, just to make sure that all the stormwater regs are in the same chapter and all the land division regs are in a separate chapter. So that's a nice kind of, that one, those regs didn't change at all. Our stormwater regs are staying all the same. They're just getting moved to a different part of the code. That I can answer any questions. This is kind of a big update, but like the zoning code, it's well needed and I think will be really important in the coming years.
Yeah, it looks like a good rewrite. Any thoughts or questions?
I guess, Mr. President, if you don't mind, I will tell you that I very thoroughly reviewed the code. I was out of town, but I did watch the Plan Commission meeting last Wednesday. I know that they have seen this numerous times. And the good news is that Sam, when I reviewed this, he and I spoke about it privately quite a while ago, and I just got a lot of questions answered. This is an amazing code, along with our zoning code, which gives us all the new flexibilities we've been talking about that we're only now starting to see in bits and pieces in the actual developments that are coming in. We can't see them fast enough. Again, my reason for mentioning to Mr. Badke that he should take advantage of the new code and narrow that roadway up. To me, the key to these code changes is always implementation. And sitting on the Utilities Committee, my conversation with them was very brief, and it was simply, we need to make sure we have the policies to implement in place within our commissions, because there are some things in here that some people were like, oh, okay, we need to be able to react to it. So it gives, it definitely does still leave a lot of leeway and discretion of staff in a number of occasions, but it was, this was a tough rewrite and very well done. A lot of detail, a lot of recodifying, and a lot of cleaning up. So I definitely support it and look forward to seeing my favorite word, Sam, implementation. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so on the matter of chapter 74, ordinance 08/2022, roll call, please.
Washburn,
Aye.
Hewitt,
Aye.
Bhatia,
Aye.
Eastman,
Aye.
Clausen,
Aye.
Anastasio,
Aye.
DeGroot.
Aye, the motion carries. Reports, number 7, announcements and/or recognition of village residents, employees, memorials, and non-political community events. We got anything? Go ahead, Mr. Good.
I would like to please request people pray for what's going on overseas and that it doesn't go any further. There's so much suffering and everything then too. So those people need attention and support. And I also want you also to pray for the Russians who are protesting against their president. Thank you.
Point taken. Amen said.
We're living in interesting times, for sure.
President,
With
I'd like to
that,
make an emotion to adjourn.
would you?
I would, if that's okay.
I hear a motion. Do I hear?
Second.
And a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.